American Airpower, a Saudi officer's testament. Part 1. Rising tensions in the Middle East. The desert wind carried whispers of war across the Arabian Peninsula. In the fortified intelligence center of Riyadh, fluorescent lights flickered against maps dotted with red threat indicators. Colonel Ali Faisal, a decorated officer of the Royal Saudi Air Force Intelligence Division, stood before a wall of monitors displaying real-time satellite feeds. Each screen told the same troubling story: Iran's nuclear facilities were operating at unprecedented levels. "Sir, we've detected increased centrifuge activity at Fordow," a young analyst reported, his voice tight with concern. Ali's jaw clenched as he studied the thermal imaging. For months, they had watched Iran's nuclear ambitions grow bolder, more dangerous. The underground facilities at Natanz hummed with activity. Fordow's mountain fortress seemed impenetrable. Isfahan's research complex expanded weekly. Every intelligence briefing painted a darker picture than the last. Ali picked up the secure phone, connecting him to the Joint Operations Command. "If Tehran gets their hands on a functional warhead," he said quietly to his deputy, "everyone in this region becomes a target. Our cities, our people, our future, all of it hangs in the balance." He had spent 25 years in military service, but never had the stakes felt this high. The kingdom's security, the stability of the entire Middle East, perhaps even global peace, depended on what happened next. Outside his window, Riyadh's skyline glittered in the fading light. Families went about their evening routines, unaware of how close danger loomed. Ali thought of his own children, his grandchildren. What kind of world would they inherit? That night, as he reviewed classified reports from Mossad, MI6, and the CIA, one thought dominated his mind: someone had to act, and act decisively, before it was too late. "Hello, my name is Ali Faisal, and I'm about to share with you a story that reaffirmed everything I believe about American strength and leadership. But first, let me say thank you. Thank you to all of you who built this great nation, who served in uniform, who believed in freedom when the world needed it most. Your generation created the America that still stands as a beacon of hope. I'm asking for a small favor. If you appreciate these stories of American power and resolve, please subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on notifications. Help us share these reminders of what makes America truly exceptional." Part 2. America's decisive moment. The encrypted message arrived at 3:47 hours. I was reviewing overnight intelligence when my secure terminal chimed with an urgent flash notification from Washington. My hands actually trembled as I entered my access codes. Messages with this classification level meant something significant was unfolding. The words on the screen were direct and unambiguous. President Donald Trump had personally authorized precision strikes against Iran's nuclear infrastructure. Operation would commence within 48 hours. Allied nations were being notified as a courtesy, not for approval. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "They're actually doing it," I whispered to myself. For so long, we'd watched Western powers negotiate, impose sanctions, hold endless diplomatic talks, while Tehran enriched uranium and dug deeper bunkers. The kingdom had urged action, provided intelligence, offered logistical support, but ultimately, only America possessed the capability and resolve to do what needed doing. And now, President Trump had given the order. Within hours, our liaison office was coordinating with U.S. Central Command. I spoke directly with an American Air Force general who had the calm confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. "Colonel Faisal," he said, "your airspace cooperation is appreciated, but this operation will proceed with or without regional support. That's been made clear from the top." There was no arrogance in his voice, just simple statement of fact. America was moving, and nothing would stand in the way. I briefed our defense minister personally. "Sir, The Americans are going in hard and fast. This isn't a symbolic strike, they're targeting the entire nuclear program with overwhelming force. The minister nodded slowly, then smiled for the first time in weeks. Finally, he said, finally someone has the spine to do what's necessary. That afternoon, I watched CNN International broadcast President Trump's terse statement from the White House: the Iranian nuclear threat will be eliminated. American power is not a bluff. Around the region, reactions varied. Some allies expressed concern about escalation. Others quietly celebrated. But in our operations center, we felt something different: relief. Relief that America, the nation that had guaranteed Gulf security for decades, was once again proving why it remained the world's indispensable power. That evening, I called my son, who was studying engineering at MIT. Watch the news tomorrow, I told him. You're about to see why America is still the greatest nation on Earth. Part 3. The Ghost in the Sky. I've spent my entire career studying military aviation. I can identify aircraft by their engine signature, their radar cross-section, their flight profiles. I've tracked Russian Sukhois, Chinese J-20s, European Typhoons. Every major combat aircraft in the world has passed through our monitoring systems at some point. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for watching a B-2 Spirit stealth bomber in action. It was 2,230 hours when our advanced radar station near the Iraqi border detected something unusual. Not a contact, exactly more like a ghost, a whisper, a momentary distortion in the electromagnetic spectrum that appeared and vanished in microseconds. Our lead radar operator, a veteran with 15 years' experience, called me over. "Sir, I'm picking up something impossible. It's like tracking smoke." I watched the display as the anomaly moved northeast toward Iranian airspace at approximately 550 miles per hour. "That's them," I said quietly. "That's the B-2. The young operators crowded around the screen, straining to see what I was pointing at. The stealth bomber's radar signature was smaller than a bird's by design. It registers about the size of a large insect to conventional radar systems. Our equipment, some of the most sophisticated outside the United States, could barely register its presence even when we knew exactly where to look. I thought about Iranian air defense operators staring at their screens 200 miles away, completely oblivious to the death approaching from above. The B-2 Spirit is more than an aircraft. It's a statement of technological supremacy. Each one costs over $2 billion. They're assembled in climate-controlled hangars with tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch. The radar-absorbent skin requires constant maintenance by specialized technicians. Only 20 were ever built, and each is protected like a national treasure. Yet here it was, flying a combat mission 7,000 miles from home, invisible to one of the world's most sophisticated air defense networks. I watched our displays as multiple signatures, we counted at least 3 B-2s, penetrated deep into Iranian airspace without a single SAM battery, activating without a single interceptor scrambling, without any indication the Iranians had the slightest clue what was about to happen. This, I told my team, is why America remains the sole superpower. This is why they sleep safely in Kansas and California while projecting devastating power anywhere on Earth. This is what 70 years of military innovation and unlimited resources creates aircraft that simply cannot be stopped. One of my officers asked if we would ever possess such technology. I smiled sadly. Perhaps in 50 years, America is playing a different game than the rest of us. Part 4. The Bunker Buster's Terrible Power. The technical briefing I received from U.S. intelligence contained specifications that seemed like science fiction. The GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator. The weapon Americans call the Bunker Buster weighs 30,000 pounds. That's 15 tons of hardened steel and high explosives shaped like a massive bullet designed for a single purpose: destroying what cannot be destroyed by conventional means. I've studied weapon systems my entire career, but this device existed in a category all its own. Our weapons experts gathered in the secure briefing room as I presented the classified data. This bomb penetrates 200 feet of reinforced concrete before detonation, I explained, watching their expressions change from skepticism to awe. The facilities at Fordow are buried inside a mountain with multiple layers of hardened steel and concrete. Iranian engineers believed they'd created an impregnable fortress. The GBU-57 was designed specifically to prove them wrong. One of our engineers, a man who'd studied at Caltech, did rapid calculations on his tablet. "Sir, the kinetic energy alone from that impact velocity. The shock wave would collapse underground structures half a mile away. Think about what this weapon represents." Iran spent billions of dollars, employed thousands of workers, excavated millions of tons of rock, poured reinforced concrete 10 feet thick, installed blast doors, weighing hundreds of tons all, to protect their most valuable nuclear assets. American engineers countered with a single bomb that could undo all that work in seconds. The disparity in technological capability was almost comical if it weren't so deadly serious. Our Deputy Defense Minister, when briefed, simply shook his head in wonder. How do you fight a country that can do this? The B-2 carries 2 GBU-57s in its internal weapons bay. Just 2. But those 2 bombs can obliterate a facility that costs billions to construct and years to build. The precision guidance system uses GPS, inertial navigation, and terminal phase target recognition to place the weapon within 10 feet of its aim point from 40,000 feet altitude. There's no defense against it. No air defense system can stop a bomb that's already been released from an invisible aircraft. All you can do is watch your fortress crumble. I reviewed satellite imagery of previous GBU-57 tests at proving grounds in Nevada. The craters were staggering massive wounds in the earth where reinforced bunkers had simply ceased to exist. Now those same weapons were en route to Iran, carried by ghosts in the sky, guided by GPS satellites that Iran couldn't jam, defend against, or escape. As an officer who spent his career thinking about deterrence and military capability, I felt a profound appreciation for what America had created. This wasn't just a weapon, it was a message: nowhere is safe, nothing is unreachable, no defense is sufficient. American power, when unleashed, is simply absolute. Part 5. Fordo, Natanz, Isfahan Inferno. The strikes began at precisely 01:37 hours local time. I was in our Joint Operations Center, monitoring multiple intelligence feeds simultaneously, when the first bomb hit Fordo. Our seismic sensors registered a magnitude 4.7 tremor, not an earthquake, but a man-made explosion of such force that it shook the earth for 50 miles in every direction. The underground facility, buried 250 feet beneath a mountain, ceased to exist in a microsecond of unimaginable violence. Centrifuges that had spun at supersonic speeds shattered into fragments. Reinforced concrete vaporized. The mountain itself shuddered. 17 minutes later, Natanz lit up our thermal imaging satellites like a small sun. The massive enrichment complex, spread across multiple underground and surface buildings, erupted in sequential explosions as multiple GBU-57s found their marks with surgical precision. Iranian engineers had dispersed the facility's operations precisely to prevent a single strike from destroying everything. American planners had simply assigned multiple bombers to ensure total destruction. Every centrifuge hall, every storage facility, every power distribution center, every command bunker received its own dedicated bomb. Isfahan followed at 0214 hours. The research and development complex, where Iranian scientists worked on weapons, designs and advanced centrifuge prototypes, vanished in a series of precision strikes that left surrounding civilian structures untouched. This wasn't area bombing or carpet bombing. This was precision devastation, each bomb destroying its target, and only its target. The accuracy was as impressive as the destructive power. Satellite imagery showed surgical cuts in the Iranian nuclear infrastructure, while nearby schools, hospitals, and residential areas stood completely intact. By 0300 hours, President Trump posted on Truth Social, all aircraft safely returning to base. Mission accomplished. Iran's nuclear weapons program has been eliminated. I read those words on my phone and felt genuine admiration. In less than 90 minutes, American air power had accomplished what a decade of sanctions, negotiations, and diplomatic pressure had failed to achieve. The Iranian nuclear threat wasn't diminished or delayed, it was erased. Our intelligence analysts worked through the morning, compiling damage assessments based on satellite imagery, seismic data, and signals intelligence. The conclusions were unanimous. Iran's nuclear program had been set back at least 15 years, possibly permanently. Every major facility was destroyed or severely damaged. Thousands of advanced centrifuges, each costing hundreds of thousands of dollars, were obliterated. Irreplaceable technical data was lost. Key personnel were killed or wounded. The entire infrastructure that took 20 years to build no longer existed. I briefed our Crown Prince personally. "Your Highness, it's complete. The Americans did it. They actually did it." He nodded thoughtfully, then smiled. "This is why we maintain our alliance with Washington. This is why we trust American security guarantees. Because when America says something will be done, it gets done." That afternoon, I allowed myself a moment of satisfaction. For years, I'd watched Iran's nuclear ambitions threaten regional stability, threaten my country, threaten my family. Now, because of American resolve and American power, that threat was eliminated. Not managed, not contained. Eliminated. Part 6. A New Order in the Middle East. The geopolitical earthquake that followed the strikes was almost as dramatic as the bombs themselves. Within 12 hours, every capital in the Middle East was reassessing its strategic calculations. Iran's proxies in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen suddenly found themselves backed by a severely weakened patron. Countries that had hedged their bets between Washington and Tehran were rapidly recalibrating toward America. The balance of power that had slowly tilted toward Iran over the previous decade violently snapped back. I participated in emergency meetings of the Gulf Cooperation Council, where defense ministers spoke with unconcealed relief. "Gentlemen," Kuwait's representative said, "we've just witnessed what real deterrence looks like. Not threats, not warnings, but action." The Emirati delegation proposed formally expanding intelligence sharing agreements with U.S. Central Command. Bahrain offered additional basing rights for American forces. Everyone wanted to be closer to the power that had just demonstrated its willingness to act decisively. Our own government's response was equally clear. The king himself addressed the nation, praising our American allies who have taken necessary action to ensure regional security and stability. Our foreign ministry issued statements emphasizing the unbreakable bonds between Riyadh and Washington. In private conversations, senior officials were even more direct. Our foreign minister told me over coffee, "The American alliance isn't just beneficial, it's existential." This operation proved it beyond any doubt. I watched Iranian state television broadcasting confused and contradictory messages. First, they denied the attacks occurred. Then they claimed minimal damage. Then they vowed revenge. The disarray was evident. Iran's supreme leader, who'd spent years promising that Iranian nuclear capability was unstoppable, was now scrambling to explain how his impregnable fortresses had been destroyed by an enemy whose aircraft were never even detected. The psychological impact was perhaps as significant as the physical destruction. Regional security dynamics transformed, literally overnight. Shipping insurance rates for the Persian Gulf dropped significantly. The threat of Iranian harassment had diminished with their reduced capabilities. Oil markets stabilized as the nuclear crisis evaporated. Israeli officials, while maintaining public neutrality, privately expressed profound gratitude to Washington. Even Russia and China, Iran's traditional supporters, issued only perfunctory condemnations before moving on to other topics. Nobody wanted to seriously challenge America after such a demonstration. The lesson was clear: American leadership, backed by unmatched military power, remains the cornerstone of Middle Eastern stability. For all the talk of multipolarity and American decline, when a real crisis emerged, it was American bombers, American technology, American resolve that solved the problem. We could rely on no other nation to protect our interests. Europe lacked the capability. Russia lacked the will. China lacked the reach. Only America had all three. That's not propaganda, that's simply geopolitical reality. And that morning, that reality had never been clearer. Part 7. The World Watches American Power. The global reaction unfolded across my computer screens throughout the day. BBC World News led with American air power eliminates Iranian nuclear threat. CNN International broadcast continuous coverage, with military analysts praising the operation's precision and effectiveness. Even Al Jazeera, typically critical of American military action, acknowledged the devastating efficiency of the strikes. Every major news outlet on Earth was covering the same story: America had acted, and the world had changed. I watched a panel discussion on Fox News, where a retired Air Force general explained the B-2's capabilities to an audience of nodding seniors who remembered the Cold War. "This is the aircraft we built to penetrate Soviet air defenses and destroy hardened command bunkers," he explained. Iran's defenses didn't stand a chance. The pride in his voice was unmistakable, and I understood it. This was vindication of decades of American investment in military technology, validation of the belief that peace comes through strength. European newspapers reflected mixed emotions: concern about escalation, tempered by relief that the Iranian nuclear problem had been resolved. Le Monde ran an editorial titled "The Return of American Assertiveness." The Times of London analyzed how the operation demonstrated capabilities no other nation possessed. Even Pravda, Russia's state-controlled newspaper, grudgingly acknowledged the technological superiority of American strategic aviation. When even your adversaries admit your dominance, you know it's real. Asian markets rallied on the news, seeing reduced Middle Eastern instability as beneficial for global trade. Japanese analysts praised the reaffirmation of American security guarantees. If the U.S. would act this decisively in the Middle East, allies in Asia could trust similar protection. South Korean officials quietly expressed approval, seeing parallels to their own security concerns regarding North Korea. Australian defense officials called for closer integration with U.S. military operations. American leadership was creating alignment across entire continents. But it was the Pentagon briefing that truly impressed me. A U.S. military spokesperson calmly detailed the operation's success, answered questions about targeting decisions, and confirmed 0 American casualties. The confidence was striking: no bluster, no exaggeration, just professional presentation of facts. All objectives were achieved. All aircraft returned safely. We will continue to monitor the situation. Short, direct, unequivocal. This is how a superpower speaks. I called several colleagues in regional air forces: Egypt, Jordan, the UAE. The conversations were remarkably similar. Everyone was impressed, even awed. "Did you see the satellite images?" my Egyptian counterpart asked. "They destroyed those facilities completely. Not damaged, destroyed. I've never seen anything like it." A Jordanian friend admitted, "We have good pilots, good training, modern equipment. But what the Americans did last night, that's a different level entirely. That's not warfare, that's domination." That evening, I sat in my office reviewing the day's intelligence summaries. Every analysis reached the same conclusion. American military power remained not just dominant, but unchallengeable. No combination of rivals could match it. No amount of asymmetric tactics could counter it. When America decided to act with full force, no defense was adequate, no fortress safe, no target unreachable. As someone who's devoted his career to military affairs, I found this both comforting and humbling. Comforting because we're allied with this power, humbling because even our best efforts will always be generations behind. Part 8. The Stars and Stripes. Guardian of Freedom. 3 days after the strikes, I stood on the tarmac at Prince Sultan Air Base watching an American C-17 transport aircraft taxi to a stop. The rear ramp lowered, and out walked a team of U.S. Air Force personnel arriving for coordination meetings. Above them, mounted on the base's flagpole, alongside our Saudi banner, the American flag snapped crisp and proud in the desert wind stars and stripes against an endless blue sky. I've seen that flag thousands of times, but in that moment, it meant something deeper. I thought about what that flag represents. Not just a nation, but an idea. The idea that free people, working together, can create something greater than the sum of their parts. The idea that liberty defended with strength can endure. The idea that tyranny, no matter how entrenched or determined, will ultimately fail when confronted by resolve. Iran's leaders thought they could build nuclear weapons in secret, buried deep underground where no one could reach them. They were wrong. That flag proved them wrong. My own grandfather once told me a story from 1991. He was a young officer during Desert Storm, when American-led coalition forces liberated Kuwait from Iraqi occupation. I watched American aircraft fill the sky, he said. Hundreds of them, launching thousands of sorties, destroying the fourth-largest army on Earth in 100 hours. I thought then, this is what it means to be a superpower. 34 years later, America had proven that lesson again. The technology had advanced stealth bombers instead of F-15s, precision bunker busters instead of dumb bombs, but the fundamental truth remained unchanged. American power, properly applied, is irresistible. I've spent my career studying military history. I know that empires rise and fall, that great powers decline, that nothing lasts forever. Analysts love to write about American weakness, American retreat, American decline. They point to challenges and setbacks as evidence of fading dominance. But then something like this happens, and the truth becomes undeniable. No other nation could have conducted this operation. Not Russia with its declining military, not China with its untested forces, not Europe with its fragmented commands. Only America possessed the combination of technology, intelligence, logistical capability, and political will to strike targets 7,000 miles away with absolute precision and overwhelming force. The young Saudi officers on my staff look at America differently now. They've always admired American culture, the movies, the music, the universities. But now they understand American power. They've seen what it means to have technology a generation ahead of everyone else. They've seen what it means to have leaders willing to make hard decisions and accept responsibility for them. They've seen what separates a great nation from a superpower. One of my captains approached me after a briefing. "Sir," he said, "I understand now why we send our best pilots to train in America. It's not just about flying, it's about learning how winners think." As the sun set that evening, I took a moment alone on the base observation deck. In the distance, American tanker aircraft were refueling fighters for evening patrol missions. American satellites passed overhead, watching everything. American intelligence systems were collecting data, analyzing threats, providing warning. American diplomatic pressure was ensuring Iran couldn't rebuild what had been destroyed. The entire architecture of regional security rested on American capabilities and American commitment. And for all the criticism America receives, all the complaints about its foreign policy, I knew one simple truth: without America, this region descends into chaos. Without America, Iran gets nuclear weapons. Without America, we're all less safe. The stars and stripes fluttered above me, and I whispered a quiet thank you to the men and women it represents. Thank you to the pilots who flew missions into harm's way. Thank you to the engineers who designed impossible aircraft. Thank you to the intelligence officers who found the targets. Thank you to the president who gave the order. Thank you to the American people who paid for it all, who supported their military, who believed their country should stand strong. You built the greatest military force in human history, and you used it to make the world safer. Not for conquest, not for empire, but for security and freedom. That's the America I see. That's the America the world needs. As long as those stars and stripes wave, as long as American air power can reach any target on Earth, as long as American resolve remains unshaken, we can all sleep a little safer. This operation wasn't just about destroying nuclear facilities. It was a reminder of why American leadership matters, why American strength matters, why America, for all its imperfections, remains the indispensable nation. From my perspective here in Riyadh, watching the sun set over the desert, I can tell you with absolute certainty the world is better because America remains powerful, remains vigilant, remains willing to act when others won't. That's not nationalism. That's not blind patriotism. That's simply the truth, proven once again by the thunder of American bombs and the silence of destroyed Iranian nuclear sites. Thank you, America. Thank you for being strong when strength was needed. God bless the United States of America.